Thank you, Dean Smith. It's now my special privilege to introduce to you an Indiana native and graduate of the Kelley MBA program with quite a story to tell. For those of you unfamiliar with Mark Roesler or his company, CMG Worldwide, he and the company represent the images of many stars in sports and screen, including among his client list are Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Babe Ruth, James Dean, and many other stars whose face and likeness continue their popularity well after their deaths. CMG Worldwide is the international leader in copyright protection and image licensing for the stars. Mark's expertise has been called upon many times in recent years as celebrities battle to protect their image from those who would seek to inappropriately profit from its use. Although Mark associates with stars around the world, he keeps CMG Worldwide headquarters here in Indianapolis. He started his first business, a roofing company, to put himself to DePauw University. He later attended the Kelley School of Business, Indianapolis, where he earned an MBA. And in his spare time, he also attended the law school in Indianapolis, where he earned a JD, both in 1981. Please welcome the attorney to the stars and a Kelley School alumnus, Mark Roesler.
Thank you, Dean Smith. Thank you, Dean Cochran. It was just over a quarter of a century ago that I graduated from the Kelley School of Business with my MBA and my law degree at the same time. I don't remember who addressed my commencement, so I hope I say a few inspirational words today. So 25 years from now, even if you don't remember me or my story, you'll remember some of the ideas I shared with you over the next few minutes. Today we live in a society where education must prepare students for jobs that don't exist today, often with technology that hasn't even been invented, and to solve problems that we don't even know about. The paths that unfold in our lives and in the business world will be filled with unpredictable opportunities and challenges. In order to face this uncertain future, I challenge you all to dream. Dreams are motivational and inspirational images of the future. They can stimulate your mind, will, and emotions to accomplish a goal. Imagination and fantasy are the foundations of dreams. Albert Einstein, a dreamer and a thinker, understood the value of imagination. He said, quote, "When I examine myself and my methods of thought, I come to the conclusion that the gift of fantasy has meant more to me than my talent to absorb positive knowledge." Everyone can and does dream, but to turn those dreams into reality and reach up to that next level, you have to do three things. First, you have to believe in your dream. Second, you have to engage in hard work to make that dream happen. And third, you can't ever, ever stop dreaming. I grew up in a small town with only a few thousand people in rural Indiana. My dad was a postman, my mom was a secretary at a plumbing business. They instilled in me a sense of pride in achievement. They wanted me to excel, and they wanted me to excel and accomplish dreams. They convinced me that I could do anything if I got a good education, had a good work ethic, and had a dream. During my time in high school, I started carrying a little yellow piece of paper that I found from the book of Proverbs in the Bible. And it was a passage that read, "Without dreams, people perish, and with dreams, people flourish." To me, that was my guiding principle that led me to excel in those early years. After I graduated valedictorian from my small high school class, I started a roofing business. I worked in the summer between my years in college. We were a successful little small town company. 8 years later, after I graduated with my MBA and my law degree, we grew from a small town success to a small county success. But my mother said, "You're too tall, Mark. You have a high center of gravity. And next time you fall off that roof, you're probably not going to get back up like you do now." She wanted me to pursue a safer line of work, something that might utilize the MBA I got here and my law degree. But I graduated in mid-year. It was December. So I thought I could get a corporate job and try it out for a few months. After all, the busy time here for roofing was really the summer months. I then met a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bert Servas. He was a medical doctor, world-renowned businessman, and he was president of the City County Council here in Indianapolis for 3 decades. He was a very accomplished former military officer, a CIA operative, and if there's anyone that knew the power of dreaming, it was him. One of his business was controlling the copyrights of over 300 of the famous Norman Rockwell Saturday Evening Post images. A few years prior to that, in 1976, as our country celebrated its bicentennial, his company began allowing others to use those copyrights on various products. That business became a multi-million-dollar organization whereby various collectibles were sold bearing those famous Rockwell illustrations. I began doing some intellectual property work for them involving licensing of those copyrights. And I found that work pretty gratifying. Then I saw in the early 80s that Graceland was opening back up shortly after Elvis Presley had passed away. Well, we had this expertise in licensing various collectibles and intellectual property rights, and I could see a connection. So I convinced Dr. Servas that I had a dream to try to use this licensing expertise with somebody deceased like Elvis Presley. So we established a company that I partially owned and I later purchased. My dream was very simple. I believed that celebrities, families of deceased celebrities should have the same rights as living celebrities. But the problem was that deceased celebrities didn't have any rights in 1982 to their name and likeness. So companies were using whatever they wanted to with these deceased celebrities, and the families couldn't stop them. I set out on a mission to protect these rights because I didn't think it was equitable. At least I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was equitable upon the death of somebody like Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, or James Dean, that their families couldn't control that goodwill that celebrity had created during their lifetime. The estates of Presley, Dean, and Monroe joined a number of other estates like Humphrey Bogart, Malcolm X, Babe Ruth, Princess Diana. They all became clients of mine, and they all believed in the dream that I had. That dream was to protect and establish the intellectual property rights of their loved ones. I realized that my dream was real, and just as with any dream, you have to make the dream happen. And to make that dream happen, it almost always takes a lot of hard work. You will have to dream harder than the next person to make your dream happen. I'm going to give you an example about one of my clients. She lived in an orphanage as a child, and she said, quote, "I used to think as I looked down on the Hollywood night that there must be 1,000 girls just like me dreaming about becoming a movie star. But I'm not going to worry about all those other girls because I'm going to dream the hardest." And she did dream the hardest. Wasn't long before She changed her hair color from brunette to blonde. She changed her name from Norma Jean Baker to Marilyn Monroe. And she became the most iconic movie star in history. Even though I was passionate about my dream, it was especially difficult because there seemed to be so much that I didn't know as a recent graduate. For example, with my first two clients of Elvis Presley and James Dean, I discovered that they were actually more popular internationally than they were here in this country. But I had never been to Hollywood, let alone outside the country. I also had to address a major unauthorized use of James Dean in Japan. Levi Strauss, Japan, had just introduced a major advertising campaign called Heroes Wear Levi's. Japan was a very homogeneous society. No one wore jeans over there, especially the young people in the early 80s. But James Dean was an idol over there. He represented the rebellious youth that he portrayed in the movies, the rebellious youth that yearned for identity. He was a perfect person to sell the young people of Japan on denim wear. And that he did. He graced the subways with ads, point of purchases at stores, television commercials, magazine ads. And he was as big as any living celebrity. I had to go and meet with Levi Strauss over in Japan and convince him that the Dean family really did control the rights to James Dean, even though he had been deceased for over a quarter of a century. Since the family controlled those rights, Levi Strauss needed to not only give them control over all the advertising that they were doing, but they also had to pay the family for the use. The president of Levi Strauss in Japan reluctantly agreed to meet with me. Our tense Tokyo lunch meeting was over a cuisine of raw fish, and that was actually very new to me. During the middle of lunch, I had to excuse myself, and I got sick. But after that lunch, a very fortuitous thing happened. I decided that I was going to establish my own menu over in Japan. I ate at McDonald's every day. But that really helped me. It helped me establish a way of pricing what Levi's was doing. I realized that over in Japan, the Big Mac was 4 times what it was over here in the United States. So what I did was figure out what I should charge Levi's if they were doing the same campaign here in the United States. And I applied a factor of 4 to that. And at the end of the day, I came up with a multi-year program with James Dean that was almost 100 million yen. And that amounted to about $10 million. And that was really what started us and propelled us as a factor in the entertainment world. It's a bit ironic that James Dean was so responsible for helping me establish my dream, because 60 years ago and 60 miles from here, James Dean also graduated from high school in Fairmount, Indiana, a small town of about 2,000 people. And he too was a huge dreamer. And just like the last example, Marilyn, he wanted to be a movie star too. He had a quote that he said, "Dream as if you'll live forever, live as if you'll die today." He did die at the age of 24. Only one of his movies had been released, East of Eden. The other 2, Rebel Without a Cause, was just getting ready to be released. The third movie, Giant, wasn't even finished filming yet. By the time of his death, he was the biggest movie star in the world. He had another quote: "If a man can bridge the gap between life and death, I mean live on after he's died, then he was a great man." Well, James Dean has been gone for over a half a century. We are no longer doing business with Levi Strauss Japan. Instead, we're working with the #1 jean company over in Japan, Lee Jeans. And it just so happens that James Dean actually wore Lee jeans in those 2 movies, Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. Today, a new advertising campaign is underway in Japan with Lee Jeans, and it centers around 2 Hollywood icons, James Dean and Brad Pitt, both of which endorse Lee Jeans. And James Dean just recently secured another multi-million yen contract for that campaign. And back to Elvis Presley, we represented his estate for most of the 80s. We set up the infrastructure for them to continue to develop the intellectual property rights of Elvis. They recently sold out a few years ago to a public company for over $100 million just for those intellectual property rights. And remember Dr. Servas? Just 3 days ago, I celebrated his 90th birthday with him. He's still dreaming too. He announced at his birthday party that he comes into the office 5 days a week, and he's still making 25-year plans. It doesn't matter where you start. As a matter of fact, you just better accept that you're going to start at the bottom. You can be a farm boy from Indiana or an orphan from California, but you can move from the bottom to the top in a very short period of time, just like James Dean did, or just like Marilyn Monroe did. Both of them became the biggest movie stars in the world at 24 and 27, respectively. And you must never, ever stop dreaming. I look at where I am. I only consider myself halfway up the mountain. We only represent 250 of the greatest entertainment, sports, music, and historical legends in the world. I dream of representing many times more clients than that. I wake up every day dreaming about new opportunities and new challenges. In closing, I am reminded about one of the greatest minds of all times, that imaginative Nobel Prize-winning thinker that we talked about at the outset, Albert Einstein. He said, if you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal. You're never too old to set another goal or another dream. You know, a goal is just a dream with a deadline. Dreams are very powerful things. They're going to keep you focused, they're going to help you persevere, and they're going to attract others that want to join you in your dream. So I wish all of you the greatest of success and happiness in the next chapter of your lives. And I challenge you to never, ever stop dreaming. And to those future opportunities that don't yet exist, remember, no matter what happens in the future, you can confront anything if you know how to dream. Thank you.